Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Meet the Employer, where we'll be chatting to our friends from Reach, one of the leading media companies in the UK. Now, like all of our events, we do have BSL and captioning available. So a big thank you and welcome to Carol and Judith, who will be taking this role. And for the session, we always want you to be participatory. So please do use the Q&A function to ask your questions. We'll come to them all at the end. Chat, put stuff in the chat. My colleague Toby, he'll be sharing links from Reach, like their profile pages and their job pages that you can browse later. So please do stay to the end and we'll get all of your questions answered. Today, we're taking a slightly different approach, and I'm going to hand over to Simon from Reach, who's going to be running you through a presentation and more about their role. Hi, Simon, and over to you.
Thank you, Mohammed, and good morning to everybody that's on this call. Thanks for joining us, and we at Reach are very happy and excited to be here and kind of walk you through the next hour or so. The good news is it's not going to be me talking for a full hour. I think the way we want to do this is maybe we're going to explain who Reach are and kind of some of the opportunities that come with being employed at Reach. That'll probably take about 20-25 minutes, and then I think we're going to open up to questions after that. So I guess the first thing we need to do is introduce who we are. So can we have the next slide, please? So there's our three speakers today. So there's me at the top. My day job is agency lead, which essentially means I go out and interact with some of the largest customer base in the UK. So your Tesco's, your Sky's, your Ford's, and ask them to spend money with us by the power of lunch and alcohol. My non-day job is I'm the chair of Reachability, which means that of our D&I network groups, Reachability is there for visible and invisible disabilities, and it's part of the kind of raising awareness, raising acceptance, and trying to make a fundamental difference within Reach itself as to how we can make that journey smoother. That's me. I'm going to hand over to Natasha and Robin, who will be able to introduce themselves much more eruditely than I can.
Thanks, Simon. Good morning, everybody. I'm Natasha Whitehurst, and I'm the Diversity and Inclusion Manager here at Reach, and my pronouns are she, her. I work alongside my colleague, Dr. Julie Humphreys, who is our Group Head of D&I, and I've actually been in the business since July last year. Day to day, I help deliver and embed our inclusion strategy, but also support people like Simon and other Reach colleagues operationally with kind of looking at things through an inclusion lens. I also work really closely with our inclusion networks, and we've got 7 established networks now, soon to be 8. And I guess one part of my role that I focused on over the last 6 months, a big part of that has been working with our talent and recruitment team with talent to deliver inclusive hiring, and we've done that with about 500 Reach leaders, as well as introducing diverse panels and shortlists and different selection methods. So a big focus on recruitment and hiring, and working closely with the likes of partners like Even Break.
Hello, so over to me. My name is Robin, as you've heard. So I am part of the talent and learning team here at Reach. A big part of my role is to essentially support individuals across our business with, achieving their potential in a development sense. So a big focus of that being on apprenticeship, how we can utilise apprenticeship to support people into our business, but also to support people who are already working with us, and how we make that a really accessible development option. As Natasha mentioned, we have the diversity networks here at Reach, the inclusion networks, and one of those is Inclusion Champions, and I'm an inclusion champion as well as my day-to-day job. So a big part of that for me is really living and breathing the diversity and inclusion strategy. And as Natasha has said, we've worked very closely since she joined Reach. I've been here a little bit longer than her, and really just looking to embed and get involved in opportunities such as this as well, to bring the Reach message out to different audiences. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you both. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the question I get a lot, and I think probably is worth kind of setting in context, is okay, you're here and being spoken to by Reach, but who are Reach is actually the question, because it's a reasonably new name within the media landscape since 2018. So the easiest way of putting it for everybody's kind of understanding is the UK's largest news publisher. So I'm going to say that again, the UK's largest news publisher, and let that sink in for a second, because when people think news and they think in the UK, invariably their mind goes to probably the BBC. Okay, and it's really, really important when we're talking to anybody about who Reach are, is that we get them to understand that Reach's footprint and access into people's homes and their daily makeup of their thought processes is larger than the BBC. Okay, so if you take nothing else away from who are Reach, just understand the UK's largest news publisher. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, or how do we know that we are? Back up that impressive statement. So we know that we reach 48 million people every single month, which is 70% of the UK population. We do that reasonably through the power of our 9 national news brands, over 110 regional titles. We've got 10 million registered declared users, which is basically our data set. Which means that not only do we reach a lot of people, we're also able to know quite a lot of bits about them and what their passion points are. This feels a bit salesy, and I know this isn't a sales call, but I just want to set in the context the truth of the vastness of what Reach are and who we are, because there's so many entry points into this business. When you stack up our digital portfolio, for example, it's only Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and Amazon that are above us. In the UK market. So we're playing with a full grown up adult toy set, essentially. Next slide, please. So the numbers I've just shouted at you previously all sound very good, but so far so faceless. I mean, okay, you reach a lot of people, but who are you? Well, the good news is you already know who we are, okay, because you've been interacting with our brands for the majority of your lifetimes. If anyone's lucky enough to have received a letter from the Queen, then they would have been around when the Mirror was in its infancy. So our national brands, we've got the Mirror, we've got the Express, we've got the Star, we've got the Daily Record, Scotland's biggest title, and then we've also got our regional titles. So if you're in Manchester, the Manchester Evening News will be central to your identity and to your understanding of your local world. Same with Liverpool Echo there as well. So we really are underpinned by a huge swathe of trusted brands. So whilst the name Reach might not mean anything in and of itself, you definitely know who we are already. Next slide, please. So the easiest way of thinking about our portfolio is to put it into these 5 buckets. So again, as I've said, the national brands are pretty self-explanatory. Hopefully you've seen and interacted with them through the course of your life. The regional brands, so as I said, we've got 21 of the biggest 25 in the country, meaning that we have footprints, as I said earlier, in Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham. Where we don't have a physical newsroom or an existing news title, we have in the last 3 years launched our live products, which means that we can access, there isn't a dark spot in our coverage across the UK. Okay, so we really believe that we are capable of talking to everybody in the UK about their news. And then with the hyperlocal there in your area, which was again launched during the pandemic, was the 3rd most downloaded news app during that period, behind only BBC and Sky. And if you remember those dark, grim days when nobody could leave their house and news had to be you had to be at your fingertips. Okay, so that's been a huge success. And then obviously with so many access points to our business, there are other areas where we can spin off and people can find employment. So just listed along the bottom there in the niche titles, we've got Football London, which is essentially to serve all of our football fans in and around London. We got OK Magazine, so we are also the home of celebrity news and gossip. We got Team Dogs, because part of our data set, we know our customers love their dogs, who doesn't? And then Business Live is just a very good example of how everything from a local level can be fed back up to the national level. It isn't a one-way street. So we really do feel like we are a hive, and everybody's contributing towards the common goal, as it were. Next slide, please. So all of that, so all of the big numbers I mentioned and all of the 5 buckets I mentioned, it's all underpinned essentially by what is our commodity, what is our strength, what is our USP? Well, essentially, it's content, isn't it? It's content that we've been sharing with you for over 100 years, and that can only be generated by our 3,000 journalists. And again, as a testament to Reach's ability to kind of stay the course, during the pandemic, we doubled down and we employed an extra 400 journalists across our stable, creating 400 new jobs, a lot of them across some of the assets I mentioned earlier, our live sites and in your area. So that, coupled with the pandemic accelerating the move towards a home and hub, means that not everybody has to come into where I am in Canary Wharf today. The ability to work from wherever you are in the country is certainly increased now more than ever than it was before. But the key point is the journalists and the content drives everything. Everything we do is based around that and their ability to tell a story and be trusted and to get to the kernel of truth in whatever's happening in your world. Next slide, please. So, and this is up because I work in commercial, so my day job is to basically monetize our content. But actually, if I leave that to one side for a second, I think the mission statement of the company at the minute is to create trusted connections with communities across mainstream Britain, and that's literally fundamentally what we try and do. Okay, we have campaigned on your behalf, so whether that's changing the organ donation to be opt out as opposed to opt in, which drove pickup numbers, obviously, for people needing organs, or whether it's campaigning with US Big Pharma to make the drug Vertex more accessible by the NHS to help sufferers of cystic fibrosis. We know these issues are important all across the communities across Britain, and it's our job to make those stories resonate and to apply pressure and to hold people accountable where we can. So I want to leave you with a second thing. I said if you could walk away remembering we're the biggest news publisher in the UK, but actually if you could remember our sense of community as well, that would be my job well done. Next slide, please. Okay, and then I want to finish on 2 other things. Everything I've spoken to you about so far is content and our brands that hopefully you know and have interacted with. But actually what people are less knowledgeable about is Reach also owns a live events arm. And there's 2 that I've just put up there. One is Pub in the Park, which is maybe one of our newer activations. Think of it as like a 1 or 2 day festival that serves up music and food, because it was partnered up with Tom Kerridge, the chef. But on the right hand side there, the Pride of Britain, which is it's been going for over 20 years, and every year we take everybody's heart in the country and we break it into a million different pieces, and we make you cry and we make you laugh, and then hopefully we reinstill your sense of hope as well. It's the TV calendar of the year, and people seem to think it's an ITV event. It's absolutely not. It's a Reach event. Okay, so again, it's that sense of community, that sense of fair-mindedness, of decency that we try to get across all of our portfolio. And testament to the sense of community is Pride of Britain, although it's been going for 20 years and it is it's a true staple of the British calendar. We are now doing Pride of Manchester, Pride of Scotland, Pride of Birmingham. In fact, I think Pride of Manchester was this week, actually. So again, it's just, I know that I've talked quite a bit about who we are and what we can do, and I've not begun to do justice to everything that's in our business, but I do want to leave you a sense of, wow, there's a lot going on at Reach, and there's a million ways you can interact with us. So thanks for bearing with me. Next slide, please. So I think this is Natasha, so I will now be quiet.
Thanks, Simon. What we've done today is include that update and an insight into Reach, because I think lots of people, when they just hear the name Reach, they're not really too sure who we are. So you've now got a really great understanding of Reach, all the kind of business functions and areas, but what is it like to work with us? What's our inclusion strategy? And most importantly, what are the teams that bring that news to life? Well, you might automatically, and rightly so, think about those journalists and reporters that Simon's referred to. But there's lots and lots of other roles and teams that support and that go into getting the news out there. So you can see some of the different functions on the screen now, from legal. So I know that our editorial colleagues will speak at length about the relationship that they have with the legal team, because it's a fine balance of getting the news out there into the public domain. But down to our tech and data teams that are constantly growing, because, you know, we are a digital business with a really strong focus of future in digital. And so, you know, people from UX designers to the engineers, there's lots that goes into bringing the apps to life and the websites as well. Even down to then our print teams. You know, historically we've had print teams in multiple print locations, but actually we've got 4 print sites now, and I know that they're constantly looking for engineers and people to bring in via the apprenticeship scheme to get into that as a career. Somebody has to physically still print newspapers, so there's a huge team that sits behind that as well there. So just a flavour of some of the functions, and I think we'll drop into the chat the link to our careers site, so you can see the opportunities available. But I think it's just really worth remembering that although you immediately do think journalists and reporters, there's lots of other avenues to work within at Reach. You know, I myself came from a hospitality background and never really considered the media, but actually there is a huge opportunity here for people. So next slide, please. So we've given you a little bit of insight into who we are and some of the functions, but it's really important for me to share with you a little bit about our inclusion journey. So last year, we reframed what diversity and inclusion means to people at Reach, and we made it simpler so that everybody can understand it. So at Reach, we say diversity is who we are and inclusion is what we do. We very much push, and the team will laugh in a moment because I repeatedly say it, but inclusion is an action, it's a doing thing. And ultimately we want to be in a place where everyone is given the opportunity to contribute to our success and be their true selves at work regardless of background. So that was the starting point of our inclusion journey last year, because we're still really early in this journey of making Reach more inclusive and or more diverse. So we reframed diversity and inclusion, but the second part to any strategy is about knowing the data. So if you can go to the next slide, please. When Julie and I came on board, we had really very little insight into who our colleagues are. And so we created Be Counted, and Be Counted was a voluntary survey that we invited all Reach colleagues to complete, so that we could get a much better understanding of our people's backgrounds and their experiences, and using those responses to inform our strategy moving forward. And I'm very excited to share that we've not only shared the results from the survey, obviously anonymised and aggregated, we've done that internally with all of our Reach colleagues, but we've also gone and done that externally as well, because we want to hold ourselves to account. And it really gives a really great insight into the people that work for Reach, and then communicating and using that to benchmark our progress as we work towards our D&I goals. So for me, and I know for the wider business, Be Counted is a crucial milestone in our inclusion journey, and one which any serious business really must take. And I think for me, I'm very proud that I think we can say that we're the first publisher in the UK to actually reveal the makeup of its colleagues and workforce to not just the internal audience, but also external, because for any real change to happen, it's really important that we're transparent. And actually through this data, we know now that about 10% of Reach colleagues disclose that they have a disability. But interestingly, that in itself has created a huge conversation, because actually we're finding that a number of colleagues who are neurodiverse actually don't class themselves as having a disability at Reach. And so that in itself is creating more conversation. So really utilising this data to inform the future of our strategy and Reach. This is then underpinning our framework and our inclusion strategy framework. So if you can go to the next slide. So it's all very well me sat here saying, you know, we now have redefined diversity and inclusion. Well, what is our aim as a business? Well, we want to be in a place where we build an inclusive organisation that reflects the communities and people we serve. Because if we think about what Simon said at the beginning, 48 million people, we're in more homes than the BBC, or we've got a real responsibility. We need to ensure that the Reach colleagues that we have that are delivering the news are representative of that audience. And so, as I say, we want to be a place where everyone's given that opportunity to contribute to our success and be their true selves. But the big piece is, how do we do that? Well, all of our activity, our inclusion activity at Reach, falls within the 3 pillars that you can see on the screen. So connect, respect and thrive. And so connect is very much about community and authentic relationships, and that's then woven into the day-to-day via our inclusion networks, which we've got, I'll go into more of in a minute, but we've then also got our inclusion champions and some really strong external partnerships like Even Break. We work with Purple Space, MyG Work, inclusive companies, etc. We also celebrate key dates and events, and that's really, really important for us here at Reach as well. And then respect is about us really celebrating that individuality. So we talk about people being able to bring their true selves to work. Well, actually, let's celebrate that, as well as develop people's knowledge. So this year, we've got a really bold inclusion learning and development program around playing your part. And if you follow us on socials, you'll see that we've actually just been announcing some winners in relation to that program. And later in the year, we'll also be launching an inclusion hub with lots of our kind of internal resources and learning there as well. And then finally, thrive. So that's about us empowering our people to be able to recruit more diverse candidates. So actually, we, as I said at the beginning in my intro, we launched an inclusive hiring workshop last year, and we took about 500 of our colleagues through that, and we'll look to do more of that this year, as well as things like outreach and looking at that kind of junior early careers talent with the talent team and Robin, and really looking to grow our future colleagues and talent. And then I guess to measure our success for the future, that's very much around benchmarking and internal kind of metrics as well. So that's a bit about our framework and how we bring inclusion to life at Reach, hopefully demonstrating that it's more than a tick box. It's more than just having an inclusion team. Actually, there's lots going into this to really bring inclusion to the business as usual. In terms of bringing inclusion to life, Simon is going to go into it in a bit more detail from an inclusion network perspective, but just to give you a flavour, if you go to the next slide for me, please. So we've got 7 fully established and launched inclusion networks from disability, faith, race and ethnicity, gender, LGBTQ+. Really unusual. We have a social mobility network, which is quite unusual for any business to have, but that's thriving and actually our most popular. And we've also recently launched our family and carers network, and that is on the back of our Be Counted data. So our data showed us that we have a large proportion of people with caring responsibility, whether that be children under 18 or someone with a disability or health condition. And so we've created this network, and in the first month we've got about 80 people signed up to that. So that's brilliant. And we're also about to launch a mental health network. So that just gives you a flavour of how we bring inclusion to life. And these networks are about connecting like-minded people, learning, but helping the business make progressive change as well. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Simon, who's going to talk to you a little bit about reachability.
Thank you, Natasha. Next slide, please. So this is the real reason I'm here today as the chair of Reachability, as Natasha laid out there. It's our inclusion network based around visible and invisible disabilities. I've only been in this role really since December, and another knock-on effect of the Be Counted data was that last year a lot of our members felt that we spent a lot of 2021 talking about kind of mental health as opposed to disabilities. And so we almost had a bit of a schism ourselves and said, well, look, we need to spend more time talking about the things that our members want to talk about. And the reason I reference that is because it is key to understand that our members drive everything that we're trying to do as this network. Okay, so born out of their desire to talk about their passion points and their stories, we've got a two-pronged approach that we're kind of running through the year. One is a kind of an always there approach, which is our attempt to kind of acknowledge and celebrate where we can every major day or event that's centers around a disability. It's very, very difficult, and I would argue borderline impossible for us to run events about every single one. But this is our way of saying we acknowledge it, and it needs its own airtime as well. Off the back of that, we always ask our members if anyone's got a story around a particular disability, around a particular event or calendar, and they want to actually go a bit deeper and share their story. Then we have some journalists and some comms leads within our network that can sit with you, or sit with them rather, and tell the story sensitively and to the best of your ability, really, because it's their story. The second string to the bow is kind of like the live events, which we try and have one every 6 to 8 weeks. With the schism at the start of the year, it was very important for us to reframe what is disability, and so Even Break came in and did a kind of introduction to disability, which was really well attended, got some really good positive feedback internally, and it just allowed us to go into 2022 with some proper authentic wind in our sails. Again, following off the back of that, we've done autism awareness events, and on Monday we've got We Support Deaf Awareness event as well. So we're trying to keep events fairly common to supplement the always there kind of comms piece, I guess. As Natasha mentioned earlier, we also partner up with Purple Space. You know, they're an invaluable partner of ours. And then last December, I was really this is my second go round with Reach or the Daily Mirror per se. And when I left in 2010, it was not the company that it is today. And so in December, we were able to light up for International Day of Persons with Disability. We were able to light up all of our regional news offices and our print sites purple as a kind of show of solidarity and acknowledgement of that important day. Now, that wouldn't have happened in 2010 for sure. And I know that's 12 years and you'd expect some progress, but for me, that was quite an obvious tantamount difference than where we have been. And indeed, some of the other media companies I've worked for. I had a thought and it's gone. So that was it. The dream, obviously, I'm in Canary Wharf, 1 Canada Square. The dream is to turn this tall building purple, but the Canary Wharf estate are slightly more difficult to navigate. But I think that's our basic strategy, and the key takeaway is that our members drive it. So if they want to talk about something or share a story or just amplify something, then it's my job and my committee's job to make sure that is told and that's given the airspace it needs. Next slide, please. So one of the key things that did come out of Reachability is the Reachability Card. Now, this exists to kind of frame a conversation between an employee, their manager, and maybe where applicable, kind of a member of HR. And it's so that reasonable adjustment needs can be documented. And it just is, we found it was a suitable way and an organic way for conversation to be had. And in some instances, let's be honest, some instances for some managers, that's a difficult conversation. Okay, so this removes some of the awkwardness, and it's a kind of a structured framework. It stays with the employee through their employment history with us, and it's logged with HR, and it just gives, it just means that some place somewhere needs and actions have been jotted down, and we've got recourse to it. Now, this Reachability Card, whilst it's had some success stories, and where we've had those success stories, people have been very positive and open to sharing their experience of it. We are very aware that it's still very much on the employee to seek it out and to fill it in. So as part of our journey, and Natasha's going to spend a bit of time talking about our big piece of work that we're currently undergoing, we want to make the Reachability Card standard practice for all people who join the company as part of their onboarding literature. That way, we think we can increase visibility, increase acceptance, and also for the managers sat on the other side of the conversation, they just becomes part of their daily toolkit and understanding what their responsibilities are. Next slide, please. So the initial networks, they it's all about awareness and storytelling, and this is my situation, I want others to know, and we bring speakers in. But that's only one end of the spectrum. Acceptance is the real end goal, to move the dial towards that. So much like I talked earlier about the journalists and their responsibility and how they want to make a tangible difference to people's lives. Actually, the thing that excites me a little bit more is making demonstrable, tangible differences to people within this organisation, rather than just storytelling. So things we're working with, for example, the Association of Disabled Journalists. So we've set up 4 masterclasses for the diploma students, and we're setting up a mentoring scheme so that they have access to some of our key journalistic talent as well, and hopefully usher them on their way for their careers. Excuse me a second. We've also, I mentioned the Home and Hub, which makes your ability to work wherever you want, whenever you want. That's much easier. Reachability card becoming part of onboarding, kind of just a de facto thing that's done. That's also important. The biggest part of it, though, and this is taking up a little bit of mine and Tasha's time recently, is what she's going to talk about now, is the employee-colleague journey. That is where I think we can make some real differences and change how things are done. So I will pass over again to Natasha now, please.
Thanks, Simon. Yeah, if you go to the next slide for me, please. I think what we've said throughout this and what you're hearing is that we have some really great structure now in place. We've really laid the foundations at Reach, and it's about us taking it to the next level for all colleagues. But a project that we've recently been working on, as Simon's alluded to, is this looking at our colleague journey at Reach through a disability lens. And actually we've gone through all the different stages that you can see on the screen, from attract right through to departing colleagues, and looking at what are we doing well, but actually where is there an opportunity for us to do better. And we've had a working group of about 6 people come together, and we've really pulled the journey apart, put it back together again, and we've got some really significant recommendations back into the business. So I'm actually taking those recommendations to our senior leadership team later today to say, actually, we need to focus on XYZ areas, things like the accessibility of our careers and our website more generally. Think about learning and development. So how can we enhance our awareness training? How do we make our internal platforms even more accessible? And potentially things like, enhancing our meeting guidance so that, are we being as inclusive as we possibly can be? So yeah, lots of recommendations. And I think, what we've said is that, we're still very early in the journey, but we are making great strides, and our Reachability network is really helping inform some of that, as well as colleagues across the different functions really pulling together to say, right, actually, where are we? How do we keep moving forward? So yeah, really positive steps. So with that, I'll hand to Robin.
Thank you. If I could have the next slide, please. Thanks. So as Natasha and Simon have covered here, there's a lot of work that has happened, but there's an awful lot of work that we still very aware that we need to do. And I think, the key thing for me with any support that we're offering to any of our colleagues is that we are always colleague-led. We will never say, oh, you have X disability, therefore you need, X, Y, and Z, because actually we appreciate and we understand that people can have the same condition but can have very different needs as part of their individual disability. So the key point for me and my team is to always start with a conversation. So the Reachability card, as Simon has said, is a really great kind of base for that conversation, because it's something that structures it gives people that opportunity to talk about their needs, and if it's an invisible disability, something that the hiring manager, the line manager may not have any awareness of at all, but just to really allow that conversation to take place, to understand the individual and what works for them. Because a lot of the time we find in the learning space that people can tell us, based on previous experience, what is going to work for them, what is going to suit their individual needs. And it's, as I say, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We are very aware of that, we're very mindful of it. So the reachability card becoming part of that onboarding process is very, very important, you know, to my team and the actions that we take, because actually then we have that sight from the very beginning of individuals and what their needs are. So that's going to really help us to further excel, I would say, in the support that we offer. To talk about some of the support that we do offer at the moment and how we've approached different situations, you know, we have colleagues across the business who have dyslexia to varying degrees, for example, and obviously that kind of presents itself differently. Different people have different needs, so whether that's the traditional support that you would expect in terms of, you know, screen covers or any software that can support with that. And we also have an instance where we have somebody who struggles quite a lot with their mandatory training. So because we're a PLC, we have mandatory compliance training, which is probably one of the things that Natasha and Simon and other people across the business dislike my team for slightly, because we're currently on a drive to make sure everybody is where they need to be. But you know, it's part of what we all have to do. It's just very important that we can show to our partners who are working with, to future colleagues, that we are, you know, compliant in all of the right areas. But as part of that, we've identified that one particular individual, what works best for them is to actually have somebody act almost as a scribe for them. So somebody to talk to them about the questions and ask them to think about what the answer is, and then we support that. So that's a very individual need, and that's something that's facilitated from us from a central team perspective. We've also had kind of instances in the past when we were looking at development opportunities for people, so something that sits slightly outside of the day-to-day offering that we have at Reach, and looking externally for some support to help them further their career. And they, you know, called out to us that they, because of their learning style and how they work, they doing something heavily academic. So an apprenticeship is work-based, but it has some academic sides to that, it's quite structured. That wasn't going to work for this individual, so we had to look at it differently and look for something that was more experiential based, and actually where the assessments for them went about kind of essays and what they were submitting. So again, we worked with the individual to understand what's going to work for you, and we went out to market to see what could fit that individual needs, so that we could then give them, you know, the development opportunity that was going to work best for them. And I think, you know, that's our main approach, really. You know, we've had challenges at times, if I'm honest. You know, we have an awarding body that we work with, and we presented to them an individual who was neurodivergent, and we said, you know, this person needs additional support with some of their formal exams, and they came back to us with some of the more traditional support mechanisms, so additional time in exams and other stuff such as that. But we knew from our conversations with the individual that wasn't going to be enough for them. And actually, you know, they needed more than that. They needed somebody there to help them to understand the jargon of the questions that sit within certain exams. And we needed to put that additional level of support in. At first request, that wasn't something that they were kind of able to completely compute. I don't think it wasn't something they were like, oh yeah, brilliant, we'll do that. They were like, well, these are the options that are available, and that's what we will offer for this individual. But as a business, we were like, well, no, we know that's not enough, and we need to take this further. So we continue to, I don't want to say campaign, but I suppose in its own way, it was a mini campaign that myself and the line manager took on, and we took that challenge to them, and they actually reviewed their support. They understood where we were coming from, that we weren't trying to, you know, I think they perceived initially our request as something that may give the individual an unfair advantage, but we were able to articulate to them that that wasn't the case. We were able to work with them so that they understood that we were just leveling the playing field. It was just in a way that they've never had to do before. So I think, you know, that kind of takes us back to the Reach purpose being to campaign and to support people. Which we take that right the way through. It's not just in our publication, in our storytelling. That's in, you know, when we've got to do the right thing by our individual, by, you know, our colleagues, we absolutely will do. And just to speak to, you know, future planning, as Natasha said, you know, we're working to encourage even more apprenticeships across the business. But one way that we've recently looked to bring in, you know, a new colleague as an intern. So Wesley, the school that you can see on the screen here, they're a school for students with special educational needs. They work with them up to the age of 19. And really the Wesley kind of ethos is to have those students leaving their school, either progressing into further education or to the world of work, and really helping to equip them with the skills where they may need that additional support. So we have an intern from Wesley School working with our facilities team at our head office, so where Simon is today in Canary Wharf. And that was a new venture for us. That was something that was new for 2021. He's been absolutely phenomenal, a really great addition, to that team. He's helped to bring improvements into the team. And, from the school side, they said that they've seen such brilliant improvements in him as an individual and how he's developed as a result of the placement with us. The end goal with that is to convert that into a role. So we've got a place for that student in our business moving forward when they reach the end of their studies. So that's just an example of how we're looking at different ways of connecting with schools and organisations who kind of have that access to talent and individuals who may not ordinarily take mainstream routes in to work for whatever reason. We're looking to build those connections so that we can present that Reach as an employer, we are accessible, we want to work with you, we want to understand kind of what are your needs, how can we best support you, and to grow those development opportunities. So, I know that Natasha and I are both hopeful that that Wesley relationship will be something that is just the start of a really positive journey for us in that space in terms of how we connect with individuals. So that was all I had to bring for today. So I think I'm just over to somebody else to kind of pick up questions. But thank you very much for your time. It's been brilliant to have the opportunity to speak.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Simon, Natasha, and Robin, for that super fast tour of Reach and everything within it. And I'm sure people are really interested to hear about it. We do have a couple of questions, but before I come to them, I just wanted to pick up a few things on you with that. And one thing which is really important that you said is you have these networks because, one, you want to support your colleagues, but more importantly, you recognize that to better represent your viewership of 48 million people, you need to have people from all backgrounds to better reflect that. So you may not know, but if colleagues join with certain disabilities, do you encourage them to get involved with projects outside of their main job? So for example, me being blind, if you're doing a campaign around visual impairment or something's happening in an area that I'm not working on, would I be allowed to join in? Because I know people with disabilities are very passionate in helping.
Yeah, definitely. I think the brilliant thing about our networks is that they really are a resource of people that we can all kind of learn from. And I know that we've had multiple projects where we're working on certain things and we say to our it could be Reachability, and say, we're working on this, is there anyone that wants to volunteer and give their insight, thoughts and experience? So we're very much use them as that resource base that people can volunteer their time and insight. And it's also a kind of two-way street as well, because people who are part of that network may get an insight into a different area of the business that they've never even experienced before, and that even potentially is a career move for them, because they go, actually, I've worked with this team, I'd really like to work in that area of the business, and it's also we've also placed and moved people that way too.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And I know you're not recruitment specialist at Reach, but there's always a few questions, and it'd be great if you can give some insight. But if not, maybe provide us with an email address where candidates can request more information. Of course, if you apply through Evenbreak, that is a huge advantage anyway, because our friends at Reach will know that you've come from Evenbreak, and no application is treated in a way discriminatory. So any adjustments you request will be given. And am I right in thinking that anyone that applies, you will consider their adjustment request from day one, from application onwards?
Yeah, absolutely. And as Robin alluded to, it's all about us having that two-way conversation, because no two people are the same. And so if we can have that conversation from that application stage, that means that we can make those reasonable adjustments from that moment. So it's about that really open two-way communication, and Julie, myself work really closely with the recruitment team to make sure that those kind of best practices are in place. No,
that's brilliant. That's really, really good to hear. And I presume is putting an application form the only way you can apply to Reach, or are you open to other ways? Because obviously someone's a journalist, maybe better at writing and not so good at interviews. Someone that is a videographer might want to present some of the work they've previously done. How does it work there? Is there a standard process, or is there different processes depending on different teams?
So we do have a standard application process. So people do go via our ATS system, just to keep that kind of standard way of communicating into our recruitment team. As you can imagine, with, last year we had hundreds of roles that went live in the same week as part of an Accelerate program. So to be able to, if we bespoked it for every role, it would sometimes get confusing. But people have the ability that they can apply with a CV, they can freehand their response to some of the questions via the ATS, and then the process isn't always, because we have been encouraging a more kind of diverse way of inclusive even way of recruiting. Some of the application and recruitment processes do vary, so it may not be that you sit and just have an interview like this. It could be that there's competency-based questions, and some are even around a project. So I know that some of our talent tech teams have done kind of projects as part of that recruitment process, because that shows people's skills as opposed to just how they communicate.
Of course. And in any of these ongoing things, it's always important to reiterate that you'd always consider people's requirements and adjustments to ensure that they're not disadvantaged compared to other applicants.
Yeah, definitely. As part of our setting up of, I've been recruiting the last few weeks, and as part of the process is to make sure at every step you just ask the candidate, what needs do you have, and can we make any adjustments for them? Brilliant. And Simon, maybe picking on you with that, I know you work on a lot of short-term projects, which maybe aren't permanent contracts. Like, can you maybe talk to us a bit more about that?
Sorry, Mohammed, can you clarify that?
Or you worked on a few consultation projects, or a few shorter term projects where you might need someone for 6 weeks or 8 weeks for a specific program or an area.
I don't actually. Sorry.
Apologies.
I'm not sure. Yeah. However, okay, so in my particular area of the business where we work, I concur and agree with everything Natasha said. We will see, in effect, we'll see everybody, and we're open to every conversation. I myself am hearing impaired with some visual complications as well. So I don't think there's any barriers to being able to do any job. So I don't have really short-term contracts and things like that, Mohammed. Sorry to kind of cut against your question, but I do want to take this opportunity to concur with everything Natasha said, and also just to underline. I know we spoke for a long time in that presentation, maybe longer than we thought we would, but the key thing for me that Natasha spoke about is the thing that she's going to take to the SLT and board later about our employee journey, because it's not just about getting people into the building, it's about looking after them when they're here and making sure that they can be authentic and be their self for however long they're with us. So sorry to cut against your question, but yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Apologies about that, Simon. Slightly crossed wires there. Now, you may not be able to answer this, but with the recruitment you've done in the past, is there any top tips you could give to people that are applying? Like, for instance, I know there's questions here around people who don't have media experience. Do you have to have media experience to work in media? Is there other industries where you can bring transferable skills? Is there any sort of key things that you have spotted in any hiring you've done in the past, or things that you could recommend to people here today?
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to take this. So I'm just looking at some of these comments that are coming through. So you know, lots of our journalist colleagues, you know, they come in a kind of trainee role, and you don't have to be a certain age to come in on a trainee role. We have people come in at all ages with lots and lots of different experience under their belt, and actually to be a fantastic journalist or reporter, having that life experience is so, like, it's so brilliant for us, because they're bringing a wealth of knowledge and insight that perhaps you know, other people haven't thought of. So, you know, no role is closed off. It's about, you know, the experience, the person, and coming in and being able to demonstrate how they can do the role with the experience and skill set that they have. Looking at, I think it's Monica's comment about production journalism. There is actually a role in Reach Sport at the moment for a production journalist. And I think the beauty of the roles that we have, we talked about it at the beginning, but we are a home and hub model. So you don't have to be in Glasgow to work in a role in Glasgow. You don't have to be in London to do a role in a certain team. You can work anywhere. We have innovation directors that work in Ireland, but actually their base office is Canary Wharf, and the team just works remotely and virtually. So we're very, very accessible, and in terms of geography, can't say that word, you know, we are spread across UK and I.
No, go on.
I would just add to that is Reach is so vast with so many entry points that like, for example, in my side, commercial, there's no requisite for previous experience to have worked in a commercial media environment at all. So my only, you asked if there's any tips or any things that my overriding takeaway from when I interview is, do people know who Reach are? Have they done a modicum of research? I mean, that's the same for irrespective of any interview process. If you've done a bit of research and you've taken the time to look at who you're interviewing with, that's gold dust, irrespective of experience level or you know, where you're based geographically, as Natasha says.
That's brilliant. Those are really, really, really good tips. And I know you briefly touched on this, Natasha, but one of the questions in the Q&A from Eleanor, talking about living in rural area and with autism and disability, meaning that relying on transport means she gets really tired. And is there opportunities to do home-based work? So yes, you touched on the, was it the hub and home model?
Yeah.
But is there opportunity for you to be exclusively home-based, or would you still be forced to go into the office?
No, so we just to clarify, we don't force anyone to go into the offices. We have 3 models. So depending on the person and the role and the way that works. So I myself, I'm home-based, so I don't go into the hub or into an office unless I really want to, or I decide to have a meeting in one. My role, I could be at home 24/7, and that's absolutely fine. We have some people that request to be in a home worker, and that's absolutely fine. The people work from home all the time. Some people like a mix of the two. So some people spend 2-3 days a week at home, and like Simon, they go into the office or into meetings a couple of days a week. But it's very much person by person, team by team, people working with their direct team and direct reports and line manager to see what works for them and their day, really. You know, I know that lots of people have lots and lots of meetings happening, and so actually working from home all the time works better for them. So we're really flexible with that approach, and as I say, it's quite collaborative. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing to take away. And you know, even down to the being tired during the working day, you know, we have colleagues who because of their additional needs, we've set up wellbeing spaces in the offices where people go and have a nap during the day, and there's a kind of uninterrupted space that people can do that. So we have, if people are in the office and they want to be in the office, they've got accessibility there as well.
So that's really, really brilliant and amazing that you have got even those like nap pods where people can take that time out, because especially since the pandemic and people working at home, I think there is a lot of anxiety going to the offices, and being able to be supportive of everyone regardless of their circumstances is really, really fascinating here. And I know the comment from Emma as well. Yes, you can apply from Dublin. As I'm sure like you've gathered from what Natasha's been saying, you can relocate, and there's multiple models in which you can work from home or a hybrid model. So that's really, really great. I think
I would just add, Mohammed, if it's okay, just so what Natasha was saying about the home and hub model from a learning perspective. If we have anybody who joins us on an apprenticeship programme, as it is now, I would say 90 to 95% of our apprenticeship programmes are delivered wholly remotely. So, you know, obviously traditionally with apprenticeship programs, and they, as Natasha said about kind of entry level and trainee roles, we don't just target our apprenticeship roles at school leavers. You know, we've actually had 2 people join us in the past couple of weeks who were in their mid-40s on an apprenticeship role, because actually they were career changing. And they wanted to kind of get into something new. So, you know, there are a few exceptions to some of our engineering apprenticeships because of the nature of that job. That has to take place, the training has to take place in the college, because, you know, there is machinery involved, for example. But I'd say the vast majority, including our journalism apprenticeship, it's delivered wholly remotely. So again, that puts us in that really strong position to support anybody who isn't able, for whatever reason that is, to attend something in person. That learning opportunity is still very much there, and actually we've seen an increase in the higher pass percentages. So the distinctions that we see through that's increased as a result of people learning, working and taking exams, etc., from home rather than in person. So it's been a real positive in the learning space as well, we're finding, for individuals.
That's really, really, really great to hear. And it so demonstrates that it doesn't matter the level you want to join at Reach, or it doesn't matter your experience. What I'm gathering from this, it doesn't matter your background or where you've been, your transferable skills, your experience, all of that can be taken into account, whether you volunteered, whether you worked at a higher level and a senior level. There's something for you at Reach. And we are coming to the end of time. We've shared in the chat links to the Even Break profile page for Reach. You can see all of Reach's jobs there on the website. I know Natasha's also shared her email address, and that will also be on the profile page on the Even Break website for you to like inquire any further questions. And you can also always come to us and ask us. We always want to continuously improve these events, and it's only with your feedback that we're able to improve. So before we say a goodbye and a thank you to Robin, Natasha, and Simon, my colleague Toby is just going to put a link in the chat to a Padlet. We'll also share this after the call, and we'd really appreciate if you could take 30 seconds just to give us your comments. We'll also be sharing the recording of this event on our Career Hive, where you can find lots of other events that we've done in the past, in media, in other industries. And you'll also be able to see our upcoming events, which we have some Meet Employers in a couple of weeks and next month as well. And we're really, really looking forward to seeing you there. Just before we do say goodbye, I'm going to hand over to Simon, Natasha, and Robin to give us one line to tell us anything they want about why should people apply to work at Reach. What is the best thing about working there? Simon.
Thank you for putting me right on the spot there with the unscripted. I think if I could boil it down to one thing, the best thing about working with Reach is that it's a nice place to be. And I know that the word nice can, you know, it's almost damning with faint praise, really, that word. But actually, I've worked at some other media organisations that are all the cliches of a media organisation. You know, they're aggressive, they're snarly, they're a little bit kind of set in kind of the 80s, 90s imagination that I'm sure we can all picture very readily. Reach is trying to do the right thing. And we've always kind of done that editorially, where we've campaigned, but it's not always been the same in internally, as I've referenced my previous stint here. As Natasha said, we're not there yet. Of course, we're not there yet, but we are trying. And each day we're trying to be a little bit better and to walk the road that we're supposed to be walking on. So for all of its vagaries of what people infer from the word, the best thing about working for Reach is that it is a nice place to be.
Brilliant, thanks. And Natasha, and then Robin.
So I would probably say for me, it's the people. I think the Reach colleagues never ever cease to stop amazing me at how brilliant they are. They're fantastic at what they do. It's a great I don't sit in a big team. I'm on my own. I have my line manager, and so there's just the two of us in our function. But I know that I can reach out to any particular team or be in any of our hubs and feel incredibly welcome and included. And I think that says a lot, especially for someone that sits in a standalone role.
Brilliant. And finally, Robin.
Hello. So I'm going to slightly copy Natasha just in terms of our people, because we always say from my team's perspective, you know, our people are our biggest asset. That they absolutely kind of, obviously they keep the business going, but as both Simon and Natasha have said, we've got a lot of great people here. It is a nice place to be. It's a good place to work. And I think as well, from my perspective, a reason to come and work with us is that we never sit still. You know, we're always kind of, I mean, literally, but from a business perspective, we're always looking at ways to improve. So everything that we've introduced over the past 18 months in the diversity and inclusion space, that kind of makes us able to come here today to speak to you all. You know, that is one of the things that, again, I'm most proud of. I think when I think about what, you know, working for Reach, and that is something that's been led by Natasha and Julie, but very much generated and pushed by our people. So I think, you know, we're always open to learning, to developing, you know, and that's not just on an individual level, but business wide. And I think that's a good place to be. We're not stuck in our ways.
That's brilliant. Thank you, all of you. And thank you to Carol and Judith as well for using BSL interpreting and captioning. And thank you all for joining us today. We will share the recording, and please do leave us feedback, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Please do apply for Reach roles now.